What's going on, Rockstar? Welcome back to the 1% Life Show. I'm your host, JoanieDhillon, peak performance coach and trainer. And man, we're talking about the new economy that is here and how you can begin to navigate it. And really what I'm going to share with you today is the only way to navigate it, giving you what I believe to be the number one NLP tool to navigate this new economy that's facing us. Jeez, it's kind of crazy what's going on. So Rockstar, if you are joining us on Facebook, drop a 1. If it's your first time listening to the show, drop a 2 if you are a return listener. And if you are listening on one of our podcasting platforms, welcome in. If I could just, before we begin, if I could ask a favor of you in advance of today's show, Rockstar, we grow because of you, because of your engagement and you sharing this with your friends, your family, and all of your online communities that you're a part of. So if you're listening to this on Facebook or YouTube, engage with me. If you're listening on one of our podcasting platforms, would you do me a favor and just leave us a rating and a review, hopefully a positive 5-star review if you did get value from this, which I know that you will when you tune in to what we're going to talk about today. So lastly, be sure to take a screenshot of this episode and tag me in it because I love for you guys to connect with me on the different platforms like Instagram, Facebook, etc. So please share this out in advance. Thank you. All right, rock stars. So here's what's going on. Times have changed. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and guess what? A lot of people are kind of getting used to it. And the reality is that if you're getting used to it and you think that it's going to go back, you're clearly mistaken. Or let me just tell you, you're mistaken. So today's episode is for you, Rockstar. If you are a hopeful, what I like to call a hopeful optimist, and a believer that we will all return back to normal. You want to stay tuned. And maybe you believe that your states may even be opening back up or wherever you are in the world, restaurants and stores. And, I heard somebody tell me today that 60% of, I don't remember who I was speaking with, but 60% of their businesses in, it was Utah, I believe, have opened back up, like 60%. Well, the question is, where are the other 40% and why have they not, right? And will the 60% last? Okay, so if you believe that you're going to be able to go back to your old self, the former you with your core competencies and skills that got you where you are now, I just want to be really blunt and honest that you will not be able to do so. You won't. And it's going to require a very different you. And this one tool that I'm going to share with you today, I believe is by far the most important tool that you can take with you going into this new world era, this new economy that we are in. And got some of our 1%ers in the house listening and watching. A shout out to Jamie Black. So rock stars, let's talk about this. If you're a hopeful, if you are, sorry about that. If you think that you can go back to your old self, again, this episode is for you. Someone who totally got pattern interrupted. My phone just started blowing up and could not handle that in the moment. So I'm back, I swear, promise, right back with you. So someone who doesn't like change, if you are someone who doesn't like change, you don't handle it well, man, I promise you there's a lot coming at you that, if we haven't been faced with the most change, then I think we can speak in massive universals and say that all of us, our worlds have been rocked, have they not? And the change that we've experienced is pretty significant, pretty profound. And the reality is it's only going to get bigger. So if you fall in any of those categories, a hopeful optimist, that you believe that you can just go back to your old self and as everything was, then again, today's episode's for you. If you feel like, that you just don't like change is hard for you. See, there are a lot of people where change is really, really hard for them. And going into having a role and identity at work and then coming back to, not back to, but being forced into quarantine really did shift and change a lot, right? They had to face themselves. And man, that's a different identity outside of work, is it not? So it's very different. So here's what we're going to talk about. So the times have changed, right? And today I got an IG message from somebody who was asking me my quote unquote expert opinion on what I believe will happen to the state of his industry, which is vacation ownership sales. And this individual messaged me out of Vegas, and he said, like, what do you think is going to happen? And I was like, okay, when someone asks me that, I'm going to tell you what I believe and what I feel, and there's no reason to sugarcoat it. So when I told him what I specifically believe is going to happen based on the communication that I have seen with my own eyes from the biggest companies out there in that industry, it's a change. It's a really big change. It involves people, with 50% less what they call tours, meaning you're not seeing 50% people are even checking into these resorts and properties. And then you have to depend on, the actual resort hosts booking them. And well, you're dealing with less tours. And that's not even to say that 50% of people are going to be filling those spots, right? So there's a lot happening there. Not to mention you're in masks and the personal dynamics are changing. So I started describing all of this to him and what I believe the implications to be, meaning you're dealing with way less opportunities, meaning your efficiencies must increase. You have no choice to increase the number of closes and sales that you have, and you got to sell bigger deals on less people to make it, right? To just even make it on a 70-person sales line. So I was going through all this stuff, right? Maybe a little TMI for some of you not in the industry. But and here's what he told me. He's like, wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. And there's no way. There's no way. And he believes that the industry will go back to normal immediately. I said, wow, okay, well, that's hopeful thinking. And what would happen if you just prepared for the worst? If you prepared for the worst, because the other option is that you fail to prepare and then you get, terminated, termed out, or screwed, right? You don't have any money coming in. You don't know how to make this work. So it's great, great. Be in denial and fail to prepare, or here's the other option: prepare for the worst and be pleasantly surprised. And I know I promised you the number one NLP tool to help you navigate the new economy that we have just begun to enter. We have just begun to enter this new economy. And as I begin to share that with you, some of you may be wondering, what specifically does NLP even mean? And, before I go into this, because it's not a very commonly used word, it's getting more common in this day and age. But so for those of you who want to know what NLP stands for, it stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And simplified, we can say that NLP is a collection of like practical techniques and skills and strategies that can lead to what I call real excellence, right? Performing at a level of excellence. It's also an art and a science for success that's based on, oh man, one second. Got to put on my new world era frames, right? Because we're looking at the world differently now. So it's also an art and science for success based on proven techniques that show you how your mind thinks and how your behavior can be positively modified, changed, right? Or improved. And really, to me, it's the study of excellence. It's the study of excellence and how to replicate it, right? So knowing what strategies are you currently employing in your life that aren't working for you, they're not getting you the outcomes that you want, and how to modify those said strategies so that you can actually create your desired outcomes in your life. So, and it's based on, a lot of it is based on, well, it's based on a lot of things, but one of the aspects is language, right? Language. So the number one tool that NLP, the study of excellence and how to achieve excellence in your life, that one can use in order to, navigate this new world era and economy, is what we call behavioral flexibility. So that came out of my mouth really tongue twistedly and tied. So behavioral, I can't think it's still coming out that way. Behavioral flexibility. What does it mean, right? What does behavioral flexibility mean? What it means is it's the ability to adapt or vary one's behavior, in order to elicit or secure a certain response from another person, right? And it also applies not only just to people, right? If you want to get a certain response from someone, it can also apply to your environment, right? So as we go back into this world that we're entering back into, like really navigating a uncertain world, a foreign world, a what do things look like now world, knowing that our businesses have changed, right? Your work dynamics, your work environment is changing, and you don't quite know what that specifically looks like yet, many of you, right? You're still figuring out the new dynamic, the new landscape. Well, what that requires is that it requires that you have behavioral flexibility, that you evolve your behavior in order to accommodate the new environment that you're in. And so people who have a really hard time in doing this are those who don't handle change very well, right? And this was actually me. And I'm, to a certain extent, change is hard for me. I'll admit, change is hard for me, right? I can handle some of it. I actually like a lot of, spontaneity, but really for me to thrive in an environment, I need consistency, right? So for some of you, maybe change is hard, right? Like when your workplace starts making new rules, changing compensation plans, making all kinds of different changes. Like if that's really hard for you, then behavioral flexibility is going to take some work. It's actually going to be quite challenging for you because you have to adapt. Your clients are coming in different. Your employers and managers are going to be behaving different. Things are going to be constantly thrown at you. If you're not back to work yet, by the time you get back to work, it's going to be a completely foreign environment. Like you may feel like you are on a planet of who knows what. Seriously. And maybe you're starting to feel it now, right? And the reality is that those who do not adapt and are open to adapting, right? Flexible, right? You behave differently. Okay, so this isn't the normal environment that I'm accustomed to, yet I'm going to flow with it. I'm going to allow myself to be a little uncomfortable if that's what it requires and what it takes. And, to navigate the current landscape, it could probably change tomorrow, right? You could have had a certain MO, method of operation, that you had before in your business that completely changes now, right? Or going forward. And then you're like, well, how do I be? How is my presentation? How are my conversations with my clients? How is my process? How's my flow? Whatever it is that you do, right? It's going to be totally different now because the landscape's changed. The environment's evolved. It's different. And so just simply putting on new lenses, a new lens from which you choose, right? It's all choice. Do you want to stay rigid with your feet planted in the sand, like firmly planted in the sand? Or do you want to actually be able to not only survive in this new world era, but thrive? And that's really what this is about, right? Is having that level of behavioral flexibility so that you can thrive through these times. And this, let me give you an example. For example, when you are, checking out your comments, when you are like walking down the street, was it normal just a few short months ago for people to be wearing masks, looking at you, and then crossing over to the other side of the street, like literally crossing the side of the street? You're like, holy cow. If somebody did that to you, probably take offense to it a little bit, right? Like, what just happened? Why did they just cross the street? What do I smell? Do I look funny? Like, what's going on? And you might even have taken offense to it. Now it's like, it's normal, right? You just adapt. You might even smile now and say, hey, how are you? How weird is it that you're walking 10 feet away from me and went out of your way to do so? But like, you just adapt, right? It's like, it's a new landscape. It's a new environment. It's a new era we are entering into. And businesses are figuring out how to not thrive right now. It's not about thriving, guys. It's about surviving. It's about surviving. So they have shareholders to report to, many of these public companies. And that meant a massive cut of expense because they didn't have the income coming in. Majority of the companies out there, they weren't essential. They didn't have the cash flow coming in. And even the essential ones are slashed. From my sister's business, she's a doctor. It's slashed like, I think, down to like 30%, something crazy, right? And who wouldn't think that going to see the doctor was essential? People don't want to go see the doctor because the corona's in there apparently, right? So having behavioral flexibility is like, okay, what can we do? So what they did was they said, all right, let's figure out how to set up telemedicine, right? So if people aren't coming in to see us, well, let's figure out how to make money still. Let's set up and figure out, we don't know how to do this, but let's set up telemedicine online. And that is, that was a powerful thing. So it started bringing, okay, well, people will sit in front of their computers and talk to a doctor all day, right? And so that started shifting the business, right? Meaning more revenue was coming in. And this is what's required of you, Rockstar, right now going forward, is that you've got to start thinking from a different lens. So if not this, then what? Okay. So if not your previous MO, meaning how you were making things happen, method of operation, your process, your system, your course, your program, your whatever the thing was, then what, right? So then what's the other option? And how do I begin to put on a different set of lenses to now navigate this new environment different? And from a different behavior, right? And what if that's just accepting? It may have to do with accepting and meeting people where they're at in terms of their new belief systems, right? Like people have adopted some seriously, and I don't really want to call everybody's belief systems crazy, but there are some crazy belief systems out there right now. There really are. And those belief systems are causing people to operate out of fear. They're causing people to, operate out of scarcity, out of, like contracting. They're contracting really big right now. And if you are in the business of leading people to take action, to make decisions that they were not going to make prior to meeting with you, if you're in the world of sales or coaching or training or any of that, business, whatever it is, well, then you've got to be able to meet people. This is important. So hear me out. To number one, meet them, meet me where I'm at, meet them where they're at. You have to first, in order to shift beliefs, you have to first meet someone where they're at, right? And you have to, and in order to do that, you got to have some behavioral flexibility, right? So the thing may not go down the way it once went down, right? And that's totally generic and vague. I get it. And I know that you understand, like looking at your current system, looking at your current process, looking at your current business, the landscape has evolved and you may not even know what that evolution, that current evolution, which could change tomorrow or in a week or a month, will look like. So what you must begin to do in that new identity that we've been talking about, that you are in the process of creating now, you must go out and begin to adopt as part of that identity, a behavioral flexibility. Right? Behavioral flexibility. Like, all right, we're just going to flow with it. Like, this is what it is. We're just going to be behaviorally flexible. And that's a choice for you. So, hey, shout out to my Hawaiians and to everybody in the house. I see you guys. So let me just read this comment. So Carrie says, hey, Carrie, yes, many of us have not gotten word about what our company is doing, confused as to whether people are scared to travel and make the investment, or are they ready to get out of town? Heck yeah, that's a real concern if you're in that industry, right? It's a real concern for people in the real estate industry. Are people going to be buying homes? Are people going to be scared and holding on to their money? And with that specific question, or concern rather, that Carrie mentioned, well, let me just address it. Number one, I believe that people will want to travel. I believe people do want to travel. In fact, I just booked a flight yesterday and I just found out my sister booked travel, and I just found out that another friend of mine booked travel, and I was like, whoa, you were supposed to watch the dog and now you're going somewhere. And why are you going anywhere during the middle of Corona? I mean, while I am. So apparently I was the only one that was allowed to go somewhere. So travel is beginning to now be booked, right? Like people are starting to get out there, yet there is serious reservation. My partner traveled today across the country to Atlanta and sent me pictures of an empty Detroit airport. Empty Detroit, massive airport, empty, you guys. And it's people, when we get forced into these places and of thinking and of being, it takes a while to break through and to shift back. Like you don't just shift back, right? There becomes a new normal that happens. And because like, look, restaurants may be opening in your phase 2, or for some of you phase 1. I don't even know when Washington's opening. But, we still are in full quarantine at the time that this podcast is being recorded. I think it's like May 26th or 7th today, 27th. And And the reality is, it's like when they open back up 50% capacity, you are literally talking about plexiglass in between tables at many restaurants to make people feel comfortable. Like that shifts dynamics of how people relate to other people. Like you can just see it when you're walking down the street, right? Like people are scared AF, right? They're scared. They have been brainwashed like crazy. And maybe even you have. And that's okay. But I encourage you to stand in your power a bit more, right? To stand in your power and to, for those of you who, man, I didn't really want to go down this route, but, you know, yeah, maybe just believe that, you're protected. What if you were to just believe? Let me just ask you, instead of telling you what to believe, what if you were to just believe that your subconscious mind, that part of your mind that already runs your body, that has a blueprint for divine health, for perfect health, it runs you. It knows how to go back to homeostasis when you get into dis-ease. It knows it. It knows it. Right? Like, how many times are there miracles that doctors can't understand? Sure, I'm sure there was a higher power involved, and yet your body still knew how to get back. So if that's so possible, right? We hear about the placebo, we hear about the nocebo. There's like, you don't even have to have been given anything, and yet your body will create it, because that's what nocebo does when we fear at the level that people are fearing at. What if you were just to believe that you were protected, that you are now protected, and that your subconscious mind knows how to protect you? What would be possible for you if you could choose to step into your faith, into your power, into believing that your body, your mind, your temple knows how to protect you, your subconscious mind? What would be possible for you, right? And I believe that it's possible for all of us to stop listening to the fear, but the fear is creating an impact on the community and societies at large, like the population, the world's population at large. So we have to deal with it individually, right? And in each of our businesses, in each of our lines of work, there is no way, no escaping other people's stuff that's going on in their mind. If you are interacting with other humans, you are going to have to deal with their psychology, right? And so when you're dealing with their psychology, you have to learn how to become behaviorally flexible in that. And even if you totally disagree with their belief system, most likely, I mean, you can. If you disagree with it, you got to meet them where they're at. You have to begin to meet them where they're at in order to lead them somewhere different. I want you to get that, okay? And that's the key, right? People want to know that you understand them before they're willing to listen to you. So there's a lot that we're talking about here. Yeah, I love it. Somebody's talking about my blue blockers, and that's the reality. That's the reality of the times that we are in right now, is that those who will survive this and thrive through it, right? Like, I know you aren't listening to the 1% Life Show because you just want to survive. That's not you. You have been tuning into the 1% Life Show, many of you, for a couple years now, because you know that you are meant for more. You know that you are ready to achieve the level of excellence and to continue to strive to achieve it every single day of your life. And so this number one, what I believe to be the number one tool, just happens to come from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and the mindset and the frame that exists there is one of behavioral flexibility. So as you go about your day, I want you to do this. So John Grinder, he's one of the founders of NLP, the world of NLP, as is Richard Bandler. You may have heard of them. He suggests that each night before you go to sleep, you review your day. Review your day and the decisions that you made throughout your day, right? And come up with 3 different ways you could have responded to those things that happened to you throughout the day, right? Because you made a decision somewhere to engage with somebody, to not engage, to walk across the street or to not, to enter into partnership or agreement with someone, to help someone say yes to themselves in a big way, to whatever it is that you do. You made decisions throughout your day. So what if you were to review your day in the attempt to look at how can I be behaviorally flexible and improve upon that skill? It is a skill. That you begin to say, well, what 3 ways could I have responded differently than I did? And what this will automatically do is build up your behavioral flexibility, period. It will build it up. It will help you build the muscle. And you're going to discover that you respond more appropriately to the world, the new world around you. So, Rockstar, I hope you got value from today's episode. And if you did, please do me a favor. One of the ways that we grow, the only way that we grow, is by you getting out there and sharing the content here, right? That's the only way that we grow. And so when you get value, if you can tag somebody, share this episode out in whichever way that you do and can, I so appreciate it. And if you leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting platform that you're listening on, that also really, really helps us to reach more people around the world. Thank you so much, Rockstar, for being here today. You are incredible. Might I just say, I am really excited for what's coming up tomorrow. You may not hear it tomorrow, but I'm interviewing, the godfather of marketing, Billy Jean. He is insane. So amazing. Such an incredible rock star. Just turned 32 years of age a couple days ago, multi seven-figure earner, and is just changing the world. In fact, if you're on Facebook, which you are, most of you, because you're watching this, then you have most likely seen his crazy ads. And the biggest names, from Damon John to Grant Cardone's to who knows who they are in the world, like the biggest names in the world, have gone to Billy Jean to help create their marketing and their advertising. And so I get to interview him tomorrow for the 1% Life show. And hopefully in the next few days, you'll get to see it stream here on the Facebooks or on iTunes when we actually air. Anyways, Rockstar, have a great rest of your evening, the rest of your day, and get out there and be truly unstoppable. Bye. Peace.